Hey everybody, Nick, Brandon, and Barrett here, also known as Amongst Friends podcast. Today we are continuing our review discussion impressions of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. So thank you so much for joining us. Feel free to chat, message us, let us know if there's any issues with the audio or anything like that. We'll get it fixed. But yeah, guys, how's it going?
Doing good.
Going good.
Cool.
Excited to see how much we can knock out of this today.
Yeah, me too.
I had higher, or I had a thought that we'd make it a little further last time, so now
I didn't.
But yeah,
I was surprised we made it.
when I was editing the video and getting it ready for YouTube and everything, I think it took us like the first 30 minutes or so was just like an overview, like impressions, and then I think like each chapter was like another 30 minutes. I was like, oh, so we might have like 2 or 3 more sessions in us.
yeah.
Yeah, it was fun though. It was definitely enjoyable. I think we left off at what? So we just narratively we had just arrived at Casa de Sol.
Yeah,
I had some thoughts on the boat. I remember vividly sharing, but yeah. So we're like, what chapter is that? Do you know?
so we finished chapter 5, so we'll be going into chapter 6.
Oh my God! Yeah, I thought we went further than that.
But one thing I wanted to mention real quick, because I didn't bring it up. I can't remember if it was chapter 4 or 5, but I think it might be 4 that I didn't mention. Was that at one point uh, it goes to a cutscene of Rufus, um, where he's being told that like a Wu Tai emissary has arrived, and ends up being Colonel Glenn Lodbrok, which Rufus recognized. He enters and asks Rufus if he's going to follow through with his father's commitments for to seek like the Magnus material. But I just wanted to bring that up because I guess I didn't really understand much of what was going on in those scenes until like later on. I was curious what you guys thought.
Unfortunately, it seems like a lot of any relevance to Glenn relies on whether you played the first soldier or not.
Okay.
And I didn't know it existed when it existed. I've only recently started like really playing Ever Crisis, just to get some of that story, which is interesting. It's cool. I mean, he worked alongside Sephiroth as one of the first soldiers. Um, so he has some, old ties to President Shinra and before Rufus and stuff. So
Okay.
there's definitely a lot of good and terrible theories about where his story's going, but um, yeah, we'll get to that a little bit later. But yeah, he worked alongside. So the proto relic missions that you get in, oh hell, because you fight alongside Matt and Lucia,
Yeah.
and it's the one I can't remember what it was called, like Gremlins and like Ghost and Goblins, but not that. I can't remember what those proto relic missions were. Honestly, some of my least favorite, but those characters that they're like the other Avalanche group. They were a part. They worked alongside Glenn as part of the first soldier program. So,
Okay.
um, but yeah, unfortunately, like those characters, like if you didn't play that or didn't know about that, it's like just kind of like a little extra tie-in that I don't know how it look. I mean, based on the end of this game, who knows how big it is of impact it's going to be on the main plot? But yeah, old Glenn.
I got the sense that yeah, more plot would happen eventually, but yeah, I to this day I have little to no idea who that character was. I did get the
Yeah,
sense like he's wearing he's wearing the same cloak, right? Or essentially as, well, maybe it's not a cloak, robe as the
Clone.
yeah. So I figured he had something to do with that. I honestly doubted if it was whatever character he was representing himself to be, if that was actually him, or if it was Sephiroth disguised as him, or somebody else disguised him. So that's, but yeah, I tried not to think too much about it because it seemed like there was a lot of lore there that I didn't know about. But I think the third, it seems like they either do a DLC, I feel like, or a third, they just pick up on the third game and give him more context. But
Yeah, I hope they'll give him more context that you don't have to go too far outside of, you know, the re-trilogy to get a hold of, because the other, like, you're just lost on him if you didn't play one phone game that was only available for like 2 years.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I definitely
and
think they.
honestly, getting the story from through Ever Crisis, like as much like Chemical Witness saying in the chat, Ever Crisis is fun. I'm really enjoying it. I like Ever Crisis a lot, but it is a grind, and you're getting through three different game stories. So like in order to play Crisis Core, you have to get so far in Final Fantasy VII. You get to Crisis Core. In order to get to First Soldier, you have to play through so far through Crisis Core, and then you kind of have to go through each of these stories in tandem with each other. You have to get so far in this one before you can move on to the next. So you're just inching through each of these stories really slowly, as a gotcha phone game would do. But um, yeah, just to like give it a little shout out, like Ever Crisis is a lot of fun, but the pacing is kind of slow.
Yeah, I mean, this specific thing, I think they do clear it up. Kind of not. I won't say clear it up, but I think they do cover enough of it later on that I don't think it really, on the surface, I don't think it really matters all that much. I was just kind of, I wasn't as familiar with him, so I wasn't sure exactly if there was more significance to that or not. But
Yeah.
so onward we go into chapter 6. We see the party arrive in Costa del Sol and attempt to relax for a brief period. Uh, though nothing's never that easy. Um, when they get there, like the two hotels are out of rooms. Uh, Lovable old Johnny spots Tifa and welcomes the party to his own hotel that he had to squeeze through some boxes to get to, and ends up being a dilapidated beach house essentially. Um, but they, knowing that's the only place to stay, that's where they decide to round up. Cloud drops his Buster Sword off in his room, so that like this whole area is combat free essentially. Um, so what are your guys' initial thoughts on this area?
Barrett, you first now.
I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. I got on that
Don't you
Segway.
take a shit on
I got on that Segway and I rode the miles out of it until I was like, okay, I'm done. I don't have to touch this thing ever again. There was like that little quest that you had to do that like goes so far on it pretty much, and I just went around Costa del Sol until I hit the mark,
Yeah.
and then there was like the nightmarish game where you had to find all the segways and put them on the right parking spots and stuff, whatever. Like I got that crap out of the way. But then, I mean, I really liked the Rocket League Red 13 game in this area. I had a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, me
Um,
too.
it immediately just felt familiar. Um, I don't know. This area, I just think of the mini games right off, other than the the awkward outfit changing thing. But um, the Pirates game was really, really difficult to try and get used to, especially as you like get further in the ranks. So I didn't understand how to get the last. I think I got 3 stars on it, like the third level. But then when post game when it unlocked the last mode of it, I was like, "There's no hope for me on this." Like, um,
That was probably like outside of the outside of like the red game, that power ship one was probably one of my favorites of at least that area. And I love like the intro to it though, because like when Cloud like leaves the beach house to like follow the rogue figures, and like they like the ladies or whatever like pull him towards like getting those companion cards, and like they gotta essentially play the mini games and everything. It was just like that was like one of the funnier cutscenes I think, as when you first go over to the pirate mission area, like Barrett's like standing there like ready to play, and the guy's like, "Oh, nobody with firearm experience can play this." And that was like one of the first times like I identified with him, because he's like sitting there like complaining about like false advertising and everything.
Yeah,
I
that's
thought it was
pretty
a fun
good.
chapter. I feel differently. What is it? A Segway? What, or a moped? What is it?
Whatever it is. I call it a
I think
segue.
my personal feelings are that Segway wanted to be, or is what Queen's Blood wanted to be, uh, but failed. No, I'm just kidding. I thought it was dude. I that's fine. I didn't hate getting on it. I mean, it was a lot faster to get around on that thing. Um,
I
I
didn't
thought
feel
it was
that
a
way
lot
at all.
faster. I did. I thought there's a lot of running back and forth in
It
that
was
area.
fast.
I thought,
Like I feel like you just clip something barely and you're stuck on it though. Like it was so awkward to drive. Like you're
it's so
going and you just kind of have
stupid.
to stop and turn and just it was so awkward.
I think what was so jarring about it is
Basically,
it
what I'm
looks so
saying is, if
modern.
you liked it, you're wrong. I'm just kidding.
No, I didn't like. I thought it was weird. I thought it was weird to be featured. I remember looking back at the trailers and being like, that just seems like they just ripped that straight out of like an Apple commercial and put that in the game. Like it just seems so odd. Yeah, my
Yeah.
favorite chapter, but I did like the Mario Sunshine vibes. I thought those were pretty cool. There was some fun mini games and stuff like that. The bathing suits were awkward. I think Cloud's bathing suit is the most awkward. You know,
Yeah.
like I don't like seeing him in the Sora or Roxas speech wear that he's
Yeah.
essentially got. I don't like it. I don't think Cloud. I don't think we should know what Cloud's legs look like. That's just my personal feelings. It just doesn't. It's
Like
just
I liked
weird.
it later. I think you can put everybody in their Shinra outfits later on when you come back to Costa del Sol, and I
Uh-huh.
did like that.
I do
But
remember clearly thinking like that one of the two bathing suits for the females was well no, I remember thinking these bathing suits look equally appropriate, these two different options, and then quickly realizing that one of them wasn't, and then switching to the more modest of the two and being like, okay, that's a little less
it's like
intrusive. But
you're playing it and you're like, Stellar Blade's gonna be out in like a month. It
dude,
ain't gonna show
I was literally thinking that. I was like, yeah, they threw it a splash of Stellar Blade right
Yeah.
there. That's a fun chapter. I mean, it had some cool bosses and stuff. I think it went on a little long for me. I will say also that hotel they stayed in from that janky one gave me like a secondhand itch just looking at it. I was like, it's
Yeah.
gotta be fleas in this thing. It looks so dusty. But yeah, that's probably the extent of my feelings on that chapter. That and it's like cool bosses. Yeah.
So I mean, you mentioned Queen's Blood earlier. Like this is probably like the one section of Queen's Blood like I enjoyed the least, because it was like the gimmick of like teaming up with somebody,
Yeah.
but it wasn't really teaming up. It was like you were just starting the game with pieces already on the board, which I didn't.
Yeah, it
Really
was like a puzzle. It was more built like a puzzle match rather than like a 1v1. Yeah, I didn't really care for those either. I'm not gonna lie. Once I got to like some of the more harder ones, I just looked up the solution to complete it. No shame in my game.
Did y'all get the max score in the shooting game?
No, I didn't.
Of the main set, yes.
Yes.
Like when
Yeah.
you first do it, you've got three. But once you hit post game or at some
Mhm.
point you can come back to Coastal Soul, there's another round. I could not beat that one, and I felt like it was because it had been so long that like I'd gotten out of the curve. So like I feel like I would just need to practice small again and work my way back up and hit all the, because like going back to that game after 80 hours of a game and trying to do the hardest version of it was like not probable.
I
I
had
tried the second tier.
I had fun with it, although I did have to hold the controller like a revolver and just like with my palm hitting the trigger.
Dude, whenever
But
it started judging you on accuracy, I was like, fuck this.
Dude, and
Like, I mean that in a
with
good way. I say that and I mean it in a good way, but like it really like, because the first couple rounds you're like, oh, I blast all of them, like this is easy, and then it's like, oh, you start getting demoted for like not hitting every shot. I was like, oh, okay, well that's not how. Well, accuracy is not what I pay attention to in games so much. It's the kill.
yeah.
so
Yeah,
go ahead.
there was that. There's also a button that controlled like the sensitivity of the aim that you could
Yeah.
toggle, which I thought was really. I saw that and I immediately was like, "That's too much. You're doing too much. Don't do that to me." But then ended up forcing myself to use it. So
I think the only game that I've successfully, like, because it has the gyro control thing too, right? Where you
it
can like,
does.
hit it.
Yeah.
And the only game that I've done that and enjoyed it was Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Like, I loved using the bow and using the gyro controls. Like, that was fun. But it did not make any sense in that. It was like way too fast. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I upped the sensitivity kind of high so I could like move my cursor faster and did my best.
You did good.
Thanks, man.
So
You're
like,
welcome.
so I know last week I had mentioned when they were at one of the hotels when Aerith was speaking to Red. I went back and looked at that and like he actually didn't like use his actual voice at that time. It was actually a sequence here where like in between where you switch from like playing as Cloud to Tifa and Aerith. That's when there's like a moment in at the hotel where like it's kind of weird the way they do it because like they show Red on screen or at least his tail. They show him on screen and he's actually like using his actual voice and like talking to Aerith. I guess like while she's like taking a shower or something. But like they exchange like 3 or 4 lines and then he asks her if she's okay. She doesn't respond and like that's when he goes back to like his like deeper voice. And like that's when she like comes around the corner and like shows that her white materia is now clear. They don't really explain it at that moment, but what I essentially took that as is like the interactions like with the whispers and stuff was like kind of taking her memories away. Like, am I receiving that correctly? How do you interpret it?
Go ahead, Barrett.
Well, Brandon, I know, like, I don't know how much you know about the white materia, just based on, I know, like, I don't know how much you've looked into the original or not now, but that, the white materia is, like, crucial to the ending of the OG Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
So at this point in the original game, it's not clear. And the white materia basically, I'm pretty sure it contains all memories, because that's the thing about like materia in general, like how it works is it's like an embodiment of memory. And I mean the white materia, I can't remember exactly how that cutscene goes. I'm gonna read this transcript real quick so I can kind of remember what's said there, but like she's talking with Red about it because Red and her both have a connection to the live stream that no one else has. And she's just concerned. Like something feels off, and this whole game up to this point, you can tell Aerith seems to act like she knows more than she's letting on. Like, there's even time. It seems like at times where she's like, "It's like, do you know how this plays out?" Like, just the way she says things. Like, so I don't know. In that moment, she's just being like, she's worried because I mean that material is clear, and that shouldn't be. Um, that's kind of really all we know about it at this point. Um, but yeah, Brandon. Ultimately, that material is what wins the game. That is, so it being clear is like a, oh shit, how do we,
Well,
and more confusion comes with that later too.
yeah, there's definitely another moment like in this chapter where she kind of alludes to knowing more than what she lets on because I can't remember exactly. It's like after
like,
the boss fight, like when you're on the beach and like after the boss fight, you're on the beach and you can talk to all the other party members to like increase your relationship status and everything. But if you talk to Aerith, she mentions not worrying about the future till it arrives, and then like she tells Cloud that she'll be counting on him, and then, or at least that's the way he perceives it. Like he mistakes it as like her talking to him, and then corrects him and like says that she's talking to her future self. So I think there was like some like like hints of like, oh, I know what's going on, or to some degree.
yeah, yeah. This Aerith has a clear materia, and we don't know why. But we learn later that there's more to that. I don't want to say too much just yet, but yeah, she's worried about it. She herself, this Aerith, that's kind of gone in between, like acting like she knows and being totally clueless at times, is confiding in Red 13. She doesn't understand why the materia is lack of memory, and I think she does like kind of think that it's the Whisper stripping it. I would think, I mean, that rainbow effect that happens every once in a while, that like whenever anything that I'm pretty sure it's at the end of the first game, whenever she makes the portal and they go through into the world between worlds essentially and fight Sephiroth. I feel like she might have used that materia at that point and not knowing it. And because in the first game there was no white whispers, there was only the black whispers. Now we have white whispers. And I feel like those white whispers might be a product of the use of that materia.
It's interesting.
I don't know. Yeah.
Interesting.
Thank you, Ben.
Yeah, I was a little lost with that. Like, I didn't even know where to begin to speculate. Like, all the theories you guys have shared are make sense. I think you're probably on the right track. I didn't even get that far with it. I was like looking at it, I was like, yeah, this is over my head. It was one of those things where I was like, okay, I think I'll wait and see versus trying to speculate, because it seemed like it was so really mysterious. To me, I couldn't begin to rationalize where it was coming from. But yeah, I do remember thinking, not feeling good about the fact it was clear. I was like, that's not good.
You're like, wait a minute.
I would have been way more anxious about it. That's the main thing. It was kind of like, yeah, it's clear. I don't know. I've never been that way before. I've been like, oh, that's like, we got to get this fixed. This seems to be the main mission right now, guys. Let's all talk about. Let's all start talking about this material that I've had. That's how I would have felt about that. But she coped with it pretty well, I think.
Like that's the twist that they throw at people that played the original. It's like, wait a minute, that needs to be white. You need that.
Oh no, yeah. Oh no, it's not supposed to be that way. no, it's not supposed to be white. Or it's not supposed to be clear. Like, that's really concerning, is what I remember thinking. But yeah, I think definitely something's not happening in line with the original narrative. But I mean that in the sense of like, the world knows it, right? And it's not digesting it properly, basically. Like it is causing stuff to glitch out because they are deviating from the path. That's kind of the essence of what I picked up on. But you guys are right. It's like there's a lot of specific things that are causing that to happen.
Well, it's like that choice
sure.
that the choices that were made at the end of Remake are ultimately setting up new paths, new potential paths that have new outcomes. And
yeah. Interesting. So what happens next?
Well, first I want to go back. I want to go back a little bit before the boss fight. There's like one Easter egg that kind of pops up. So when they finally go onto the beach after they're in their swimsuits, like Hojo shows up. He goes off to like his VIP area. Well, at some point, like you go over to confront him, and like I said earlier, like it's a no combat area, so you don't have your weapons on you. So what does Cloud do? He picks up an umbrella, which that's so I know you haven't played Crisis Core, Nick. So that's a Easter egg for Crisis Core.
Oh, nice.
So
right after like a big pinnacle point in Crisis Core, Zack takes a vacation and goes to the same beach, Costa del Sol, and lo and behold, Danger finds him on the beach, and the closest thing he has to him is an umbrella, and he uses an umbrella as a sword for like a few rounds.
Yeah.
So
is it the same umbrella?
It might be. It looks like it.
From what I went back and watched, I think the pattern's the same. It's like a blue and white stripes or whatever. It's not as long though. Like from what I remember in Crisis Core, the umbrella is like as long as the Buster Sword. It's just an umbrella, obviously.
Yeah.
But it really had me wishing in this game that like you could, if even not in the base game, like I was hoping you could go back after you beat it and like still be able to use the umbrella. Like
oh yeah, where's that?
But
like a skin for the weapon or something. Yeah, where is that?
I'm sure there's probably some Chadley missions where you can use an umbrella.
Probably right. I'm looking at the Crisis Core one right now. That's a cool thing. No, I'm glad you mentioned that, Barrett, because I didn't have any idea. I was like, okay, well, that's just them being goofy, and I'm on board. You know.
I mean, I think in a way it was. Because
it was even more cheesy in Crisis Core, just by how that whole part just kind of stood out, and like Zack didn't even want to be on the beach because he was like, antsy and always wanting to do something. And so like this, it seemed a little bit more like it built up to that point to where like, because I think me and Brandon were kind of talking about it around the same time, because I feel like we were close to each other and at this point when we were playing the game and thinking like, are we gonna get Cloud fighting with an umbrella?
Yeah.
But it was,
that
I'm glad they did that.
As far as Crisis Core, that was a big moment in that game. Even though like the beach part of it was kind of silly, like it was like right after Zack beats his mentor essentially, and he's on the beach.
He definitely needed the break. He just didn't take a break.
Yeah. But he was there with one of the Turks, which we see later in this game. But like she's the one that I don't know if she recognizes it later on, but like she's the one that told Zack about Aerith being an ancient. Because like up until that point, like he had like kind of been dating her, but he didn't know anything about her. And I think it's actually like close to like one of the last times he ever saw her. I think it was like right before that. But anyways, after I wanted to say the way that the boss fight ends was I'm not that I'm confused, but there was some ambiguity there where like right at the end of the boss fight, like Yuffie appears on the top of the building. She uses her materia to like essentially clone Johnny like 5 or 6 times and has him like run across the beach with like the robe figures on his back and the grass tripod that Hojo brought to the beach like starts picking them up, and then at that point like she uses her materia to turn them all into like Moogles that explode. And I just thought it was like kind of off that like she randomly used materia to like make clones like that, and then like that's like never talked about or used or anything like that ever again. Like, how do you have like that kind of magic
but
and
it
then
becomes
not
like a
use it?
whole weird side quest. It's like I remember just like that trying to understand that. I kind of stopped. I was like, okay, I
Oh,
guess
you start thinking
sure,
about
Johnny.
like,
Okay, Johnny. Hey, Johnny.
Well,
yeah, you're like, wait a minute, this could totally change the fabric of the game. Let's get 10 clouds. Yeah, like, just go to endgame right away. You know, it's like, yeah,
so like then like after that you go back to the hotel and as you're leaving the hotel to kind of like finish off the chapter, uh, Yuffie appears on like the top of this big rock and like she gives her like whole like superhero introduction. And I just love how like Cloud kind of like plays it off. He's just like cool, whatever. Um, so like to then
Ain't
like
bothered.
she challenges him to a duel, and it kind of gives you an option like whether to do it or not. It ends the same way. Like if you agree to fight, she's like, oh, I was just kidding. But if you choose not to, like you just play it off, which I think I did. And then it's like she still like tries to tag along, but that's where she becomes part of the group for the first time. And but like even though that is the end of the chapter essentially, like that's when that whole area kind of opens up to all the side missions. And like one of the first ones you can get is like if you go back to the hotel and talk to Johnny, that's where like he mentions that like his clones are still around. I don't know why it popped up like in that specific moment for me, because like I heard him all the way through the first game and then like through this game, and like for whatever reason when he's like talking about clones, I was like, that's Spider Man. So it's like the same Yuri Lowenthal, the guy that voices Spider
that's it.
Man. Yeah, it's the same voice actor, but for whatever
Man,
reason, like it didn't register, and like he said something in that
when you heard
moment
it,
where he like it sounded like Spider Man, like something
okay.
Spider Man was saying. I was like, I don't know why I never heard it until then.
Nice catch. Yeah, no, I didn't pick up on that.
Yeah, all the Johnny stuff. I was just like, I don't know. I didn't really care too much for. I like that there's a place where I can collect all my, or keep all my accolades. So
Your
eventually
pops.
maybe I can 100. Yeah, I've got a whole pop wall I can fill up or whatever. But
Yeah,
Chemical Witness, have fun. Thanks for dropping by.
yeah, man, have fun.
yeah,
Yeah,
see you, man. Yeah, that sounds awesome.
yeah. I don't know that I really care for him all that much. It's just as far as Johnny goes, like the whole clone thing just kind of like throws a wrench in there where it's like some of the plausibility kind of goes out the window. Even though this is like this fantasy setting, it's like just the fact that that's something that happens, and like I said, it's like no big deal.
It's absurd. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's totally
it's
absurd,
absurd.
dude.
Just totally not explained, and uh, yeah, I really didn't have anything for that. I'm just like, I guess this is. I was hoping it would come back around, I guess, at some point. But even the little quest that you do for it didn't resolve anything for it.
Yeah, I think that was
I
one
don't
of
know.
those moments where I was like, I just have to turn my brain off for this. Like, there's no thinking through this. I think it'd be great though if, like, in the third game, like they totally go, like, wait a minute, and like it's a whole side quest to be like, what actually happened? Like that we
They
can
all
do
turn
that.
back
Like that's
into Sephiroth clones. And
like there's some great fan fiction out there and probably terrible that has to do with that whole world breaking, reality breaking thing where it's like, oh, okay, yeah, these like Mr. Meeseeks from
yeah,
freaking Rick and Morty, and they're totally sentient individuals. Like they're not even partially stupid or anything.
but once they fulfill their purpose, they disappear.
Yeah,
Either that or like one
exactly.
of one of the side missions is going to be to like hunt them down and eliminate them or something.
Oh yeah, I love that idea. Yeah, like goes
Yeah,
totally dark.
the long they live,
Just serial
getting
killers.
But
Oh
yeah, like I
man.
said, in that area, like that's like
Nah,
the
I don't
part of
care
that.
enough for Johnny. I feel like it's such a meme because it's like he's already not anyone's favorite character. If anyone said that they really like Johnny, they would just be like full of shit, in my opinion. Prove me wrong. But cloning him, we'll get to this a little bit more later, but cloning him is like the same awareness that Square Enix has as the chicken minigame in Gongaga. Like,
Yeah,
I don't know if either of y'all did that,
yeah.
Oh, I
but
did it.
it's like that level of awareness of a certain thing, you know? Like it doesn't need an explanation. It's just we're doing this because we think it would be funny. What would you do if there's just a bunch of Johnnies? Like, I don't know. I guess
Why
I'll just
not?
fucking deal with it.
Yeah.
Well, I think in a broader sense, like that's one of the things like I've loved about both of these games so far is like it knows it knows when and when not to like take itself serious, and there's a pretty good balance of it, I believe. Um,
Yeah, that's definitely the leaning into don't take it seriously at all because it's just a thing that means nothing.
but yeah, after that, like I said, that area opens up to the side missions, and like the only ones that really stood out that I want to mention is the workout mini games that like the gym bros from the first game shows up, and those like between those and then the first game for whatever reason I don't know why, but like I guess because it gets to a point where like I get so close to like finishing it and then like something screwing it up that those were like the two mini games from like this game and the first game where it's like I'm not doing anything else until I complete these squats or like push ups, like pull ups, whatever it was. But I stuck with them until
Yeah, I
I
did the
got all
same
the
thing.
rewards. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I don't want to repeat myself. I feel like I did that with almost every video game or every like mini game. I was like, I'd start it and be like, all right, I'm not stopping until I'm fucking done. And it was like the frog one was the only one in the first half of the game that I played it like twice, and I was like, yeah, this ain't the one. But no, I did enjoy that area though. Um, I just like Costa del Sol was relaxing. It was definitely like a good, like peaceful area. Like I didn't try, like I wasn't rushed. I mean, it's a lot with every area, but like just the natural flow of the game and getting to Costa del Sol, like I really enjoyed being there, and especially once the greater world of it opened up and you could run around outside of the town. Too bad we couldn't ride segways out on the beach, though. Couldn't take them all the way
Oh
to the other
man.
end of the map.
They just didn't go. They didn't push themselves the extra mile. Maybe we'll
Yeah,
get a
I
path
could,
though where you can
yeah,
all
because I
terrain.
want to
You
like
know.
go, yeah, all terrain segways where I can go ramp off some rocks and stuff. That'd be fun.
I bet you would like that actually.
Dude,
Um,
dude. I
I
can't
think it
wait.
needs to be in combat. I think you need to be like able to like peel out. Like it needs to be like the Disney ride moments in Kingdom Hearts 3.
Yeah,
Like uh, I think that'd
I
be
don't know.
cool.
I don't know if you remember the snowboarding mini game, but imagine what that's gonna be like, dude. Oh, that's gonna be like SSX and freaking Final
Yeah,
Fantasy, dude. I cannot wait.
yeah. It's gonna be silly. I just hope you can. choose your character and play as Red or Kate Sif,
Yeah.
on the snow.
So that was
Yeah.
that was an area in like the gold saucer, like they showed it, but it was like roped off or whatever.
Oh, I didn't
The
pick up on it.
I didn't catch it either.
there I can't remember
That makes
which
sense though.
I can't remember which area
Yeah.
it was, but like one of the wings of the gold saucer, like there was definitely like a few mini games where like they kind of had like, because the picture was like I don't know if it was Kate Sith riding it, but like his Moogle was like what was on the snowboard or whatever, at least like on the wall. So it seemed like that game was coming, or it might have been just an Easter egg. I don't know.
Basically, the next
Yeah,
part of the game.
we'll have it in there.
Yeah, it should be early on in part 3. But yeah,
Yeah.
got sidetracked there. I just started thinking about like skating or something in a Final Fantasy. I'm like, wait, it might be coming with the snowboarding game.
Oh, dude. With our chances, there'll be 6 levels of tiered awards, and it'll take you an hour if you want to do everything. And at the rate they're putting depth into these mini games, man, cool stuff though.
Yeah.
So from there we go into chapter 7, where we see the party venturing up to Mount Coral and investigating the reactor. And in doing so, you uncover Barrett's past, and dive into it a little bit before going to the gold saucer, I think. So it's like I don't know if they like. I don't necessarily know the necessity of it or like how it kind of ties back into the original, but like they keep throwing in like small areas where just like your team's arbitrarily split up. So like this area, like Yuffie wants to go on ahead, but Aerith needs to take a break. So like that essentially like splits your party in half.
Yeah.
I don't know if they like.
Climbing Mount Corral.
Yeah, I don't know that. I don't know if they just like, because you can already pick your party at like certain points. So I don't know exactly.
I think this is for intentional relationship building.
Yeah.
So
Could
like
be, yeah.
you get like that paced time where you're focusing on certain characters and aspects of those certain characters. So it's just kind of giving you like that's one thing of many, but that's something the game did really well was like giving you time with every character and how those characters bond with Cloud or bond with each other and mix and matches of like different combinations of characters together. Like I feel like it did a really good job at changing it up, even if it's not something like that's not the party setting I would have went with, but if it's for the story because there's so much dialogue while you're just walking around, which I'm not always totally a fan of, or like dialogue while in combat, I definitely wasn't a fan of because I know there's a lot that I missed because you're fighting for your life and there's music blaring and two people are talking about something really important. But yeah, I think it's just for like just that sort of pacing for each character.
I think
I can't-
you're absolutely right. No, go ahead.
Oh, you're good.
So
I was just gonna say, yeah, I think you're right though with the characters. Like it's just moments to like give you more time because like the original game, as great as it was, you may not play with most of the party most of the game, and so like you end up ending it without attachment to everybody. And I think what they're trying to do is create
You
to
would
where
have to like
you have.
talk to someone after every little thing to get new dialogue constantly, and it's like basically forcing that dialogue on you rather than you have to go so far to look for it.
Yeah.
Because you would get development like that in the original game, but if you didn't talk to your party after every little instance, whenever you'd go to a town or whatever, you weren't gonna. There's a lot to miss, and it seemed to like make it to where you couldn't miss as much for it to really hit home when it needs to hit home.
I think also like when I think of like relationship building games, like the BioWare games always come to mind, like Mass Effect and stuff. But something Rebirth is doing really well is not just having all the characters build a relationship with you, but having characters build relationships with each other. And that's something that in games that have that mechanic, you don't know what you see. So it's like, yeah, okay, I know all these characters are friends with me, but they don't like talk to each other really. They don't. There's not much interaction. I do like that they're making a point to not just have you get to know them, but have the characters like cut up with each other and have those dialogue moments. And they also introduce some new gameplay mechanics depending on who's in charge of the party. They've got some kind of ability that's unique and stuff. So sometimes it's annoying, but it's like I know that they're trying to get you quality time by the end of this trilogy. That's where you feel like super attached to them all. Yeah.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. So from there, like once they finally reach the top of the mountain, Elena and Rude show up in a helicopter, and like they drop off a few rogue figures, and it seems like at that point that maybe the Turks don't know why they're following the rogue figures, but Shinra might, because like it was like they were dropped off, and like the way Elena describes it, it's just like, oh, they just weren't. They were all docile in Junon, but once we left, like they just started going crazy. So like we're bringing them here to drop them off. But it's like, intentionally, like they were being dropped off because they were. I guess they were. We'll get to it in a little bit, but they were obviously going towards something, like drawn towards something. But it didn't seem like the Turks understood why they were carrying them around. But then that led into the Valkyrie boss fight, which I thought was all right. It didn't really. I don't think it really stood out as anything special.
Yeah. Yeah, it was the one that was like in that fence area.
Yeah.
As you're going up.
Oh yeah, the rope. It was a machine. Gotcha. Yeah, I remember that.
It's Cloud Aerith and Red. Is that right?
No, it's Red and Aerith with Cloud.
Yeah, Cloud Aerith and Red.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
I thought
I remember.
I thought you said something else. My bad.
Sorry. I remember this part because that was my party. That was who I was playing as at this point. So it was nice to like go on a mission that was like, I remember at a certain point being like, this is a crazy coincidence that like my party is the one that I'm stuck with at this point in the game. Because like for cutscenes and stuff. Because I remember for a split second thinking like, what would have happened if I would have had somebody else? But because it didn't make me change anything. Yeah. But yeah, it's a decent fight. I feel I kind of glazed through it.
Yeah, me too. Trying to remember. I feel like it did something really annoying. I guess probably every boss does, but I want to say it did something that was really frustrating. And you had to attack it a certain way. But I can't remember what it was.
Yeah, Scarlet comes in at this point too.
Well, like directly after the boss fight, we get a cutscene back at the Shinra building, and Rufus is giving a presentation on the Magnus Materia project, and he reveals energy spikes in the Mako reactors around the world, and kind of unveils the well-like life forms to the rest of the team, which Hojo recognized them as the weapons, and each weapon containing a huge materia orb on its head. And I think, that's where like Scarlet comes in, and she's kind of like objecting against it because she's part of the team within Shinra to produce their own materia. But I think that's when like Rufus is like telling her that like they still need these organic ones, especially with like Wu Tai after them as well. At that point, like Reeve challenges Rufus, but it's shut down, and and I think the cutscene ends with like Rufus demanding like everybody on his team's loyalty. So then from there it shifts to
Everything's cracking up at Shinra. So there's
yeah.
mom and dad are fighting.
From there, like the cutscene transitions to Zack and being woken up by Elmira knocking on the door. That's when like she comes in and Zack has Cloud and Aerith like in this little shack, and like she comes in and they both take them. Zack and Elmira take Cloud and Aerith back to Aerith's house. Let's see.
Yeah,
I think that's like the first time that like as they're leaving, that's the first time that Zack notices the rift in the sky as well.
So that what? Then we get. I don't remember if we get to Aerith and Cloud back there, but seeing. What did y'all think about like, what are y'all thinking about him having Zack and Cloud, or him having Cloud and Aerith like with him at this point? Like, because I remember being like, already thinking it's crazy. They're in two places at once, and then Zack looks up and he sees the rift in the sky. You're like, okay, something's different, right? Like, I don't remember seeing that pretty much. Like, do y'all have any thoughts about that at this point?
You got anything, Nick?
More curious what you guys thought. Barrett, I mean, what did you think, Barrett?
I know for me, like, I wasn't necessarily thinking about like him having them there, but I was trying to, at least in that moment, trying to figure out how it paralleled with like what's going on in the other timeline, if that's what you want to call it. Because I mean, obviously we know Zack's timeline was changed, but like at the end of Crisis Core, when Zack's dying, like at that point, like Cloud's kind of stirring again, so he's like coming back to consciousness. But obviously in this timeline, he's unconscious. Aerith is still unconscious from the helicopter crash and everything at the beginning.
And also, we thought she heard that version of her. I thought like that version of her died.
Yeah,
right there.
That's what it seemed like, because I don't. They didn't outright say it, but like I feel like he at one point like checks her pulse or something, and it seems like she's dead. But in that cutscene,
also doesn't her materia fall out of her hair whenever? Was it white? It was white then, right? In this timeline, it's white.
Well, in this specific cutscene, like he's got it off to the side, and he hands it to her, to Elmira, and they don't really say anything other than, "Oh, this was Aerith's thing."
Yeah.
So they didn't really acknowledge it, but yeah, at that time it was still white, at least in that timeline. So
I remember.
So that's when I like started like questioning how are these tied together, because it's like almost as if I don't know specifically, but it's like almost as if like Cloud and Aerith in that moment, it's like outside of like all these separate timelines, they're still like intertwined in this, where it's like they're the same entity no matter which timeline they're in. So that's like why like that's why they're like incapacitated in this one, but alive in the rest.
I was like,
oh,
go ahead. I don't need to rant too much on that.
No, I don't know. I have mixed feelings about the alternate timeline stuff. It's probably not what I would have chosen. If somebody had said, "Hey, would it be cool if it did like a what if type timeline, but make it canon?" Be like, I don't know if I love that idea, but I guess they've introduced it well, so I'm just trying to enjoy it and stuff. I don't know what it means yet. Um, I do know, but besides the fact that I think overall, like if you ask me how I feel about it, I'm like, you know what? Our whole cast of characters at some point, might be the third game, right, is gonna be featured. And that's a really cool idea, So I can let go of like and they are really messing with the lore in the canon and in the timelines and stuff like that. But yeah, I think right now there's like just so many questions introduced with this game, and it probably makes sense for where it sits in the trilogy. Um, but yeah, there's a lot, there's a lot going on and stuff like that.
Every time it cuts to
Um,
Zach, it's such a what the hell is going on? You
yeah,
know, like
and why and
more so
how?
than fucking 20 Johnnies running around. I could care less, but they're, cutting over to Zach and Cloud and Aerith are there, alive, just unconscious, and he, I don't know. I just remember being like, where are they fucking going with this? That's where I was at this
Yeah,
point, but
I feel similarly, and like sometimes I wonder if it's a cultural thing. Like I wonder if like storytelling in Japan is like a lot more naturally convoluted, and so maybe it's just me. That's the problem with like all these timelines and the complexity of stuff, and kind of get that. I go back to that Kingdom Hearts 2-ness. You get to the end of it, and it's or Kingdom Hearts 3, and you're like, what? Wait, what's happening, and why is this so complicated? So I do find myself trying to hold on to like really simple things. I'm like, all right, I like these characters, and they're trying to save the world, and that's all I need to understand.
yeah,
And like their backstories still make sense. So it's not that I think the stories specifically with this moment with Zach and stuff, like not that I think the story is bad or anything. It's just like a matter of me trying to like put it together in my head, and they really haven't helped you do too much of that at all, especially by the end of the game, which I know we'll get to. um, but yeah, so I think more than anything I'm curious, and I'm hesitant to like have any type of opinion on it because I don't know like what they're going to do with it. And I think it'd be really cool if we get to the end of the trilogy and it's really just two timelines we're dealing with, right? It's like the original and this alternate one that's been influenced, and those are all we kind of have to mentally deal with. It's where I'm kind of like not sure that there might be like seven or infinite timelines or something like that we're trying to list together that just make it so like potentially absurd about what we could see by the time it ends. Like it's just crazy. And you got freaking Sephiroth coming in with like a mop cut at this point, one with green hair, one with blue hair, and it's like I'm version 2753. Like I don't know. I can't help but be a little bit like scared about some of that. But yeah, so those are like that's like my baggage feelings when I see that part. But overall, I'm on board for it. Like let's just see where it goes.
yeah. I had to ask
Yeah,
because
we'll
that's like kind of this is the first time we see Zach after Aerith seemingly died in his arms. Knowing that, we know that she's alive and well with Cloud last time we saw her, but now she's like getting, so it's just a weird, like they've really just put Zach in this weird spot. It's like I remember that little moments we get with him throughout the game. You're like, where is this going? Like I remember it, like being happy that like I'm getting to hang out with my dude for however long, and then saying like, is any of this even real?
Hmm.
Is Zach's truth like this was after he dies, just like infinitely trying to help people he loves, and seems helpless. I don't know.
Yeah. I like his optimism though. He's kind of like a mixture of like Cloud and Sora from Kingdom Hearts. Like as far as his innocence and attitude and childlikeness. So
Yeah.
yeah, he brings a cool dimension to it. I'm curious to see the love triangle that potentially forms. If that's even a thing anymore, but we'll get to that, you know.
Now, overall, Zach's for the most part a very simple guy. You know, he just embraces dreams, and
No matter
Right
what.
here.
at the end of the day, he just wants to be a hero. But
I think I mean, if everyone had it the right way, you know, there's no love triangle, and Cloud runs off with Tifa, and Aerith is left to Zack, and they live forever in the live stream.
Oh, that's an idea.
so, back in the current day, the party is at the minecart tracks, and that's when they first see the uh, the weapon like emerge out of the water. Of course, Yuffie's only like focused on getting that materia, and but I think like right around that same time,
Yeah, she's like blown away
yeah.
by it. She sees it, and she's like, her eyes light up.
So at that
I love
point,
that.
Yuffie does.
yeah, at that point, Red recognizes what it is and pretty much explains to the group that Hojo's obsessed with the obtaining one, and I think Barrett acknowledges that its appearance means that Shinra is like truly threatening the world.
Yeah, the world feels threatened, so the weapons have emerged. It's like a almost like an urban legend come to life, you know, like if the world is threatened, you know, and the live stream feels threatened, then it brings along the weapons to defend it.
It's like antibodies, right? Is that kind of how I took
Yeah.
it, you know, like the immune system of the planet, which is a cool idea.
Mhm.
So
Super cool.
then that cues some of the rogue figures uh, essentially just jumping off the edge of this cliff down into the water, and I'm only assuming that they're going to be closer to the weapon at that point. But at that point, Cloud starts having a vision, and he almost like follows suit before Barrett shakes him from it. So then then I don't know if it's I don't know how much of the whole team stays, but then at that point,
I think this is Aerith stays with him
yeah,
for sure.
I think it's
Because
just
he at this point Cloud's incapacitated, needs to take a break because they've just, you know, climbed this mountain, and it, you know, he's got some form of exhaustion. So him and at least Aerith stay behind, and then what, Barrett and Yuffie go on ahead to like scout the track.
yeah. I know at least Barrett and Yuffie go. Um, I think maybe Tifa goes with them. Um,
Maybe.
but like they're going through that whole mine so they can get to the control panel to lift the bridge, and
Yeah, Yuffie, Barrett, and Tifa.
so at the very end of this level, well throughout this whole levels, like you have control of Yuffie, and you go through a whole bunch of like grappling hook sections. Um, at the very end of it, you get to the top of this structure, and you see this. I don't know for sure if they were chocobos or not, but then that's where you see that little nest of baby birds. I say I don't know if they're chocobos or not because after the boss fight, like when the mother shows up, that bird's clearly not a chocobo, but like all the babies look like
Are you
it.
sure?
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's see.
uh, I don't remember if they are not. I remember this part in the original game because you can climb up this like invisible, like it doesn't even look like a spot that you're able to climb up, but you climb up like this ladder and it goes to like it's this like almost like it's out of a cutscene, like out of a fancy cutscene back then, but it's just a shot of a nest and there's like eggs and baby birds in it, and it's just like a little moment of oh how cute, and then you just like keep going, and there's really not much more to it than that. But in this, like it throws, it's like the Cloud Junior becomes like like I almost wanted him in the party, like I
Yeah,
want
Yeah.
one true
his
god.
connection with Barrett. His connection with Barrett was so cute, dude. Like I was like, I want him to stick around for the whole game now. I
And
love
anything
that.
that humiliates Cloud seems to be appealing. I've noticed in the
Yeah.
games. Yeah. Anytime they reference
Yeah.
Cloud in comparison to a bird or chocobo, I'm like, it's like his spirit animal. It's like his Patronus or
Multiple
something.
times
Yeah.
it happens where they're like, "Does this look familiar?" And you're
You're
like,
like,
"That
what's
looks
going
like,
on?
yeah, it looks like Cloud's hair. Holy crap! Wow. Glad you're aware of it, game."
Man, I just Googled that boss, that bird boss that's watching over the eggs just to see it, and man, they do not age well, do they? Those little birds. Um, Wait a minute. Remind me though, was that boss, that big bird boss, was that the parent or is that some
No,
predator coming to eat
no,
the
that
babies?
was a predator.
Okay,
It
thanks for
seems
clearing
like
that up.
it
So
looks like a
I'm not
damn
wrong.
demon
Yeah.
though, but which
It looks like a
de-
yokai or something.
yeah,
Yeah, it's got
design
long,
wise,
like
it's like one
feminine
of
hair.
yeah, design wise, it's like one of my favorite enemies in the game. But
Hmm.
just because it does have like a demonic face and like four wings. But yeah, after you defeat it, it like flies away, and like the actual parent comes in, but it doesn't look like a chocobo, so that's what has me confused because like those like the chicks look like chocobos,
Weird
but
game.
I wasn't sure.
This game has no rules, man. That's what I'm learning.
It's
It's just like,
bird in Final Fantasy. It's related to a chocobo in some way or another. It may not be exactly.
hmm.
But I that was another one of those like cutscenes that was probably one of my favorites in the game where like when they bring Cloud Junior back down and they're actually like face to face and like Cloud just like looking at like right in the eyes as it's like flying in front of him and just like kill me.
That's just so good. It's like it can't even say anything. I love that. Like you heard a character like that, everyone's funny, and how he put it. It's just his menace and just the ability to take a joke, I guess, and know how to even react to a joke. But like the comic relief of Yuffie with the party, like it started strong and just keep going through all these moments. So good.
I think Yuffie's attitude towards collecting materia is like the embodiment of the players. Because I know every time I'm seeing a new type, I want to get all those types of materia and max them out and stuff like that. So I love that collectathon. Though it does seem to be like there's like a conflict of interest with her winning this materia and the whole point of how this materia is being made. But whatever. Little bit's fine, right?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, like with her being like a part of Wutai, like they're after the same materia that Shinra is, but for them it's all good because they're using it the
At
way
first,
they're using it for good.
right? Maybe their version of good.
Yeah. Yeah, the versions of good.
Uh, sorry, as y'all press on, I gotta run to the restroom real quick. I will be right
Yeah.
back directly.
So I'm trying to. I guess we don't want to move on yet with the narrative. In the meantime, what materia do you think you use the most in the game besides cure?
uh, I'm not sure. Probably. Yeah, I'm not really sure. What about you?
I think I don't know. I probably used any that. I mean, it all depended on what the enemies were weak to, I guess, for the most part. But haste is one. Once you get the materia that lets like your teammates cast it without you actively selecting that materia while you're in control of them, I'd put like I can't remember what that maybe it was the auto cast materia. I'm not sure, but I would connect that to the haste spell on a character, so they're casting that. I always like the time magic, like in all the Final Fantasy games.
I don't dislike those, but I never took the time to learn how to use those as much. Like
They can be
those,
really
or
good.
like any of the time ones, or like any of the subversion ones, or anything like that. Like I probably, yeah, I just didn't understand how to use it appropriately.
Yeah, no, I hear you. It's a, I mean, it's that's those are the ones where you have to like take into account how it's positioned on your weapon, right? If it's like a linked material slot or unlinked. But the other thing too is it function. Well, some of those function differently based off what material you can connect it to. Like there's that one like the elemental buff that'll put the element on Cloud's weapon or other characters' weapons.
Yeah,
But it depending on which material you use, it'll just do like it won't do a damage buff. It'll do like a damage resistance and stuff like that. So yeah, we were just talking Barrett while you were away, just about like the material we used a lot and stuff throughout the game. Besides cure, I said.
the
Yeah,
the, the
cure's definitely the
ones
most used.
the ones I was happy with this game were the fact that like the few that they like combine fire and ice and then lightning and wind. That way I didn't have to
Hmm.
have four separate materia on Cloud.
Right.
Uh, I'll probably use the fire and ice and lightning and wind combined with magnify the most.
Hmm.
Like
Yep.
just swapping between those for sure. Um, or cure and magnify was always a good one too. Anything with
Yeah.
magnify. Magnify was the most used, most
There just
used for
wasn't enough
me.
magnifies in the game.
There's
Maybe
only
they were
like
hidden
four
somewhere.
in the game, and I don't. There's either three or four in the game. You can't get enough of them, and you have to go through bullshit to get each one of them past the first
Hmm.
one. So, and I think one of them is missable.
I'm
So,
pretty sure I missed that one. I remember reading something
uh,
about that, and it was like, yeah.
that is the most, in my opinion, the most useful materia.
Hmm.
You're talking about that. I heard you talking about elemental too. I mean, that one's nice too
Yeah.
because you can, especially whenever enemies stagger on elemental attacks and stuff, like being
Oh,
able to attack them physically and it kind of count towards that stagger bonus. I mean, that was nice, like in between using your um, materia and stuff.
hmm.
So
But
I won't say this is like the most used one because it's more passive, but I think the most valuable one to me was probably the first strike. Just being able to start out
Mm-hmm.
each
With some ATV,
encounter
yeah.
with like ATB, like already, like pretty much starting out like each
yeah,
fight with a bar already filled.
I think the most used and most valuable to me is probably the Phoenix summon materia. I think that just I was like, man, if I was coming up against a steep boss fight or trying to get a summon, I'm like, hey, auto auto revive on everybody. Um,
I this might be a hot take. I did not utilize the summons in this game because it took ATB to do their abilities,
mhm.
and I preferred like using the synergy attacks and
Mhm.
stuff
Mhm.
more than using the summons because I felt like some summons maybe it's when I was using them, but I just felt like they weren't as powerful as they have felt in previous games while when I was using them. Because they were just like kind of just they would just go around and do regular attacks until you use your ATB to use like a either the smaller attack or the bigger attack. And if I saved up as much ATB as I needed to do the bigger attack, I just didn't feel like it would do the damage that I felt like it should have sometimes. I don't know. Like it just I know that every time I used summons, there might have been once I think in the Rufus fight was like the most useful that I had a summon pop up. I was like, okay, fuck it, we're doing it here. I need something to distract him. But like, yeah, I didn't. The summons in this game, this definitely isn't my favorite portrayal of them. I guess like they definitely look cool. There's no doubt about
Yeah.
that. And like the fights with them one on one were challenging. That was cool. But utilizing a summon in battle, I got to a point where I just didn't even think that it was necessary for myself the way that I played, I guess.
I typically only use them as like a last resort. Mainly,
Yeah.
mainly because I got kind of burnt with them in the first game because I always, for whatever reason, I'd always use them at the wrong time, like right before a cutscene or something, right before a stage, like, and it would just like totally nullify it. So I'm just like, yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
like
I,
that and like
Do it on
going
a three-phase
into
boss and right before the cutscene on the second phase. Yeah.
it's the worst.
Yeah, dude.
like that and using like a healing potion and then going right around the corner and then finding a work like a bench or something. Those were like the two like biggest frustrations I had with this and the first game.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would agree. This is not my favorite iteration of how they've done summons. I think visually they're amazing.
Yeah. They definitely
And
look cool.
I like the big stat bonuses. Like that's the most beneficial part is equipping them to your characters gives you like big bumps to your MP and health and pretty much all your stats the more rare they are. But I miss the old school summoning where it was just a really powerful spell. But also in the original Final Fantasy VII, you could do a summoner build where you just got one character stacked with all these, MP plus and multiple summons. And I get why that's not necessarily a thing, in this one and how they designed it. But I liked I like the old school summons where you just kind of bring it in, or even Final Fantasy X's way in some ways, except it kind of replaces your party. But yeah, it'd be cool
Yeah.
for whatever they do in the future. Like I figured this is probably the model of how they'll do it, for the trilogy. But however they do them in the future, it'd be cool to get back to just them being ultra powerful spells, maybe with a twist. But
Dude, part three, they need to go full icon fights.
Don't get me started on Final Fantasy
Could
16.
you
Man.
imagine? Could you imagine being able to control them though? Like actually like control them in the way that feels like Final Fantasy VII's fighting, but you have full control of Ramu and you're just beating people with his
I love
stick
that
and
idea.
casting thunder on them. Like it just seems like it'd be so awesome.
Seems more. Yeah, it would be awesome, and their scale isn't as big as
Kind
they
of
are
like
in
Final Fantasy
16.
X, where it replaces your whole party,
Yeah.
which I liked that. If it's got its own set of abilities and it's just super powerful for a minute and you can do a good chunk of damage, then it serves its purpose as a summon. So it'd be cool to like be able to run around as him for like 60 seconds and have full control of the summon, rather than him be
Mhm.
just kind of like around and then you use your hard-earned ATB to do his ability that is like lackluster. I don't
Yeah.
know. Yeah.
These are valid points. Hey, Final Fantasy 16, the best summons ever, but you can't do any summons, but you're always doing summons. Like,
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
it's gonna happen when it happens. You can't call on it yourself, but when it happens, it's fucking awesome.
yeah. That's such an I love 16, but we'll have to talk about that in a future
We
episode.
will.
Um, Yeah. But anyway, okay, so back to where we're at in the narrative. So we Gigatrice, I think it was the boss, the
Yeah.
bird boss, right? And then what happens? They're
So
through the mines at this point.
yeah, from there they reach North Corel, and as you enter, Barrett's like berated by like multiple groups of locals, um, and then Tifa suggests that they stop by the clinic to talk to the doctor because he was the doctor that kind of like I guess nursed her and everything after she was attacked by Sephiroth. Um, and then when they go in
I
there,
liked.
go ahead.
No, I just liked the connection there.
Yeah.
That this was the same doctor that treated her after Sephiroth
So
cut her up.
at that point, Cloud sees another vision of Sephiroth, and through this vision, like he thinks he's attacking Sephiroth, so he swings his sword, and Barrett blocks it, and he comes to and realizes like he almost killed one of the robe figures, and at that point, the doctor explains that he had done blood tests on the robe figures and speculates that they're soldiers with cellular degradation. And
Word.
do what?
I said there's that word that Advent children call out pretty much.
Yeah. And then he also mentions that a group of the robed guys headed off towards the gold saucer, and which makes me curious how they got there because from there the group goes on the ropeway, but you actually have to interact with it to enter the tram or whatever to go up. So like somebody helped these rope figures up there, or they just operated this tram by themselves, or
They're just all along. I don't know why it just the way that everyone just kind of like, yeah, they're there. Oh, look, maybe he needs help. Here, let me press the button for you. You know?
They're like sea turtles, you know what I
yeah.
mean? Like a lot of them get picked off, but a couple make it. And there's
It's
just
like
sheer numbers.
it's like how
Like,
many
swear
of
to God,
them
that's
Dude,
how many of them walked off the cliff before somebody came over and was
that's
like,
it.
okay, let me help you with this tram.
exactly. And they're gonna get there eventually, have no doubt. Like they just got along. They got to crawl out of hell. Um,
I just love how
yeah,
they're almost like in certain games where you can click in the stick and it tells you the path to go, you know, like
Yeah.
um how to follow the objective. It's like they are constantly leading Cloud to the objective.
yeah. They're definitely some of the most miserable game characters ever. You know, it's like, man, it sucks being one of these dudes. They're kind of conscious enough just to be miserable, conscious just enough to be totally miserable, but not enough to like, get any better. Then again, maybe they
Yeah.
can. I don't know. Poor guys.
So along this tram ride, Barrett's telling the party about his past and how he was one of the one of the villagers there that pushed for the Mako reactors to come to the area, and foreshadowing here that Don argued with him on it, which Don was one of his friends, best friends back then. But Barrett tells of like how shortly after construction, much like how um, much like how Shinra created the false narrative with like dropping the plate, they also the reactor blew up and then they came to town and pretty much wiped out a lot of the townsfolk. Um, so yeah, from there we go into the gold saucer.
really, I love this chapter, right? Um, because this is, correct me if I'm wrong, but this does Barrett's backstory in full, right? As far as the flashbacks, or
No, it
do
splits it
they?
up. It stops at like where the reactor blows
Yeah,
up.
that's right. Because you find, yeah,
Like a touch into his past before we go to Golden Saucer, and then I
hmm
think it's while we're there, you
that's
got to go
right.
to like the under area, and we got to backtrack and find Barrett in
Yeah,
this next chapter, and that kind of leads us into its full. If something
Yeah,
happens at Golden Saucer, leading us to that.
I think so I'm remembering. I think more of the original game. Some of the maybe how they told the story then, or maybe I'm just combining that with the Golden Saucer part. But I really was looking forward to this part in Rebirth because this was like the mission that made me care about Barrett, right? Like as a character in the original game, just because before he's
Hmm.
basically Mr. T with an arm gun, and he's not a bad guy or anything like that, but he just kind of felt shallow. And we'll get
Just
more into
extreme hardcore for for the purpose of there being a character to be that way.
exactly, yeah, and like you could definitely tell, it's likable. But I ended up like loving him as a character in the original game. Like I thought that was one of the best stories they wrote in the original and stuff. So yeah, I was really looking forward to and enjoyed a lot where that story started picking up and how they portrayed it, and they really did it justice. But we'll get to that, I guess, in this next chapter, Golden Saucer time,
yeah.
which.
This was definitely like it was very coincidental. Like we had the conversation as we were playing, and it was around this time that I was like, it's not that I don't like him, but as far
Mhm.
as like everybody in the group, like Barrett's probably like the one that like I least relate to. And I was like, mainly just because like he goes through everything with like such like strong conviction. And
Mhm.
I was like, I don't personally like relate to that. And then Barrett, you were like, man, just hold on. You're probably about to see something that's going to change your mind. And it really did.
Yeah,
You know,
Um,
yeah, he's
but yeah, that cutscene kind of like splits that in half. So from there we go into chapter 8. The whole party arrives at the Gold Saucer, and as they're arriving, there's a helicopter that arrives that with Elena and Rude brought Palmer to the venue, which Palmer is one of the Shinra execs. Um,
yeah. I hate that guy.
yeah, and then
Definitely.
from there you get to sit through and watch all the pomp and circumstance of the intro to the Golden Saucer, where there's a whole dance number that involves Yuffie, Aerith, and Tifa, which
We get the introduction to Dio, and he
yeah,
comes out and flexes his muscles at us.
yeah.
yeah,
This whole section kind of reminded me of like the absurdity of like the wall market dance in the first game.
Yeah,
yeah.
kind of
Those
parallels that
things.
like lore, that level of like showcasey kind of um, Broadway kind of bringing that into the game.
It's like death by cringe a little bit for
Yeah,
me. Like I know
little
Yeah.
bit.
that's like
Oh yeah.
yeah. It's like
Anytime, especially when they start making Cloud come out of his like stoic, just like pissed off attitude, and they're like, come on, dance, just have a little fun. And he starts to have fun, and you like see it on his face. It is so cringy. Like I
yeah.
love it,
It's
but
cringe by design, right? Like I get
yeah,
that, but yeah, it's cringe nonetheless. Yeah,
I
I
do
felt very
like that
embarrassed.
they took my one of my least favorite areas in the original and made it this beautiful place where I was excited to get into all the little mini games and stuff. Like it was,
Oh, the Golden Saucer.
yeah, Golden Saucer like wasn't really my favorite part of OG Final Fantasy VII. I didn't. It's
Yeah.
confusing and just like, I mean, there's I don't really think many of the mini games in the original were that great. You just wanted to get through them. At least personally, I did. Like, I didn't have a whole lot of fun. I just liked progressing the story in that game. Um, but they turned it into some like a spectacle in this one, and I knew it from that picture that you shared a while back with us before the game came out. There was that picture of the golden saucer, and it was
Looming in
Kate Sith's Moogle, right outside the golden saucer. It's like the first picture
Yeah.
they showed of it, and I remember being like, "That looks like it could actually be amazing. It's gonna feel more like a theme park of sorts."
Yeah.
And it did. It did a really good job.
Yeah. Yeah. I was gonna say that is I feel like that's a part I grinded through in the original game too. But this time I was blown away. I was like, oh, they created like a literal virtual theme park. I was like, how did they even get this done? They would have had like an entire development team just working on the Golden Saucer. Like it blew my mind. And then like the haunted hotel, which we'll get to and stuff. Like I was like, oh yeah, this is super cool. Like they
Yeah.
really got to push the art design. You felt like you were at a theme park just from the way the staff at the park operated and stuff like that. I was like, this is really neat. It's pretty crazy that this got as much time and attention as it did. To me, it was like one of the bigger highlights of the entire game was just how good. And then I was like, all right, I'm on board. Let's play some mini games and do this for as long as the rewards are good. So yeah,
And you didn't have to have 30,000 gil in order to even like be able to have, because like you have to buy your way into it in the original. It's like 3,000 for a day or 30,000 for like a lifetime ticket. So like all through the game up to that point, if you know what you're about to get into, you're saving up all your money. That way you can get that lifetime ticket when you get to Golden Saucer. So like I like that they just did away with that, and you go and you can get tickets for all your games and stuff and use them on prizes at the vendors and stuff. Like it was, yeah, great area.
Here they kind of retconned that cost to get in, because the first thing you do, like once you've got control, really, is like Dio challenges you to a mini game, which is like the retro style fighting, which is essentially like Rock'em Sock'em Robots. Which before the game came out, like I saw the character design for like this mini game, and I figured it was probably going to be my favorite. And then after playing it, like I did a lot of it, but it was like one of my least favorite, just because it was kind of hard to like telegraph like some of the moves that were going on.
Didn't tell you in the tutorial anything other than dodging left and right.
Yeah,
It didn't tell you about the back stepping and the forward stepping in the tutorial. That is like nowhere to be
Yeah.
found until you just start getting into the later parts of the actual minigame. It makes you feel like you're good at it at this part. Like you learn it, you figure it out, you're good at it, and then you go and actually to the part in the Golden Saucer where you can play that minigame on its own, and you feel like you're good at it. And then Shiva just comes out of nowhere and is like, oh, you thought you knew all the moves? Well, now try back stepping and forward stepping, but the animation looks almost identical.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
you
dude.
you don't know how to prepare. It's like pure luck. Dude, Shiva made me so mad. I was like, why are you doing that? What do you mean? I know that I dodged left. Yeah, it's ugh.
Yeah, if you beat Dio here, he gives you a golden passport, which is essentially that lifetime entrance. But yeah, from there the party kind of splits up. I think the girls in red go to relax or explore the park, where Cloud and Barrett don't like, much like Costa del Sol, like Cloud and Barrett don't want anything to do with kind of like all the festivities going on. So like they go off to find the hotel, which they arrive at the haunted hotel, and I love this section because I'm kind of like a sucker for like any time like Halloween stuff is like introduced into like the theme of any game. Like even back to like Kingdom Hearts. Like the whole Halloween Town section might be like my favorite part of that whole game.
Yeah, that's what this gave me the vibes of.
Yeah,
Like this
for
was
sure.
the Halloween Town, little spooky section of Final Fantasy. It was really good. I like how the guy at the counter like comes down upside down, like hanging upside down.
Yeah.
But like as they're walking to the hotel though, like Barrett's like enraged at like all these attractions along the way because they're all fueled by the Mako that like he's like trying to preserve and like trying to preserve the earth. So like he's like enraged at all of it, and to the point where he's like breaking some of the stuff, just like knocking it over. Which is when Ch8 introduces himself, and from there they go into the hotel. They're being told that everything's booked up, so like Ch8 hacks the system and like cancels a booking so that they can get a room. Which
Why are you helping us, random cat?
yeah. Which then
Yeah.
Which then you find out that like the room that he got canceled was actually Elena, Rude, and Palmer's room.
So, I love that.
So from there we get as they're going to the room, we get a cut scene back to Zach and Aerith's house, and it's a little off-putting because like you have control of Zach moving around the room, but like you're like the camera is like Cloud's eyes as if he's awake, but he's not awake.
And it's disorienting because like you kind of think that like am I someone's eyes in the corner of the room, and then it switches perspectives once you leave the room as Zach, and if you walk back into the room you look over and it's Cloud sitting there. So it's like, okay, so I was through Cloud's eyes for that one little moment. It was really weird, but definitely interesting. And it was while Cloud was asleep. So Cloud goes to sleep at the haunted hotel and is somehow kind of aware in this area. You know, I mean, the timing there just kind of strange to be from Cloud's perspective.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like he can manipulate anything in the world yet, but he at least has a window into it once he goes to sleep in the current world or whatever.
Yeah, I'd be curious. I'd have to like look it up and see how it all lines up. But it seems like there's a few different times in this game where Cloud will take a nap or something, and it kind of transitions back. I don't know if it does that every time, but it definitely kind of leads back to like what I was like thinking earlier with Cloud and Aerith, where there's got to be like some connection there across the timeline. But yeah, from there, Zach is informed by Elmira that Biggs visited while he was asleep, and so at that point, Zach leaves and he's off to find Biggs, and I think there's like a small section there where like you can kind of walk around and talk to some of the townsfolk looking for Biggs before it goes back to the Golden Saucer. I don't know if y'all interacted with it or not, but there's like a few things like when they made it to their hotel room at the haunted hotel. Like there's a few different things you can interact with there that I thought were pretty cool. But my favorite thing about it was probably the when they like Barrett and Cloud first walk into the room and they're like alarmed because there's a Tonberry that starts moving towards them, and it ends up being a humidifier. And I remember telling Barrett when we were playing through it, I was like, I'd probably buy one of those if they made it available.
Yeah.
It is pretty cool.
Real quick, I don't know if did you mention like whenever it's whenever we're in Sector 5 as Zach, there's a moment where like Marlene is like really worried about no one coming back, just worried about everybody, and like Zach gives her like a whole like motivational speech, kind of like lifts her spirits up. I don't know. I remember thinking it was a
Yeah,
sweet moment, just like
yeah.
you seeing two characters interact that like I've never interacted, and I just like it was cool to see like I mean Zach's good with kids, he's proved that in the past, so like it's just I don't know, it's a sweet moment for him to cheer her up.
Yeah, for sure. So I've got a
Yeah.
note here at this point, like where it goes back to like current timeline. That like at this point there's like a cutoff for like all the relationships you build up until this point. Like this is like the cutoff. Of, like at this point it's decided who you go on a date with later on. And I don't know how y'all felt about that whole system, but I didn't specifically throughout the game. I didn't specifically like set out to achieve like one certain date or whatever, but I tried to answer like every relationship thing in a way that I thought that it would make sense for Cloud to interact with them, which inherently means that you're kind of working towards a date with Tifa because that's really the only one that makes sense as an actual date, anyways. Um, especially, but I find it especially hard with stuff like that when you've got a linear game like this, and you know it's going to carry over into a new game. So it's like I don't know that I necessarily agree with that aspect of you're trying to like maintain this canon, but now everybody that's played has a different version. So there's potentially things that could happen that somebody else may not know about unless they interact with these things the same way or they go back and play everything to get all the different outcomes.
Yeah, I like that they're. I mean, it's definitely no like BioWare relationship building. It's a little bit more covered up as far as like how it's going to work out because I feel like I've had everyone's relationship pretty well even throughout most of the game because I was doing everything. So like I didn't see by the time it got to a point to where it was gonna the date, I didn't know who it was gonna be because everybody was pretty happy. Everybody had the blue circle. So like um I didn't it just seemed a little hard to control how that was going to happen. I guess I would have had to have totally ignored certain characters in order to not, and I wouldn't have wanted to do that. So I didn't really personally understand how to manipulate that. But post game, when you do the chapter select, I believe you have the option to do all those dates individually. So it does kind of come around in that sense. It's just that's something you don't know leading up to, and you have that FOMO. And yeah,
Well,
don't
not
think it was
only
really done well for the first playthrough, I guess. But as far as like knowing how to manipulate it,
well, not only then, even if because that's the way I did it too. Like I said, I wasn't intentionally going for Tifa, but I guess inherently through my choices it was. But yeah, I
that's
mean,
what I got too.
once I got to that point, like everybody's relationship status, it seemed to be pretty much equal. So I think it just defaults to Tifa at that point. But like even in the post game when you go back, because that's the way I viewed all of them. Is in the post game I went back and rewatched all of them. Even then, each one has like a different level based on where their happiness was or whatever, wherever the level was. So like each character like had like a basic ending or whatever for the date, and then there was like a full happiness level version. Not a lot changed, but there's just like for instance with the I think with Cloud and Tifa, like if it's just like the basic one, like he'll hug her and then they'll kind of like get awkward and like go their separate way. But
Mm-hmm.
with the full level, like they actually kiss,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
it seems like all the different dates kind of like, if it's not Tifa, they all still kind of like end in a friendly manner. Outside of Aerith, there's a little bit of ambiguity. But yeah, there's like each character has like the basic form and like a full level. So there even then there's, like I said, there's still a little bit of difference.
Yeah, I had mixed feelings on the whole relationship system. Until I was scared. Whenever they implement that, I get scared at a certain point that something like that gold saucer chapter is going to happen, and it's not going to be necessarily my favorite character from a personality standpoint, but a character that I used for their utility. And that's exactly what happened because, no offense, I like Barrett and everything, but I did not want to spend a date with him out of all the available characters. And that's exactly who they saddled me with. And I was like, okay. I was like, and I was like, okay, that would have been nice to have a little bit more of a forewarning or a choice, just like they could have just asked you and said, hey, who do you want to go on this date with? Like, I get the idea. Yeah, I was like, really? And it was fine. Like, there was a story I wanted to get out of that, and there's conversations that I liked that happened, but, it was still silly when you see that, oh, I would have gone on any one of these other characters. But I also felt like, I know what you mean, too, about, like, how are they going to take into account who you shared that with for the third game? And I don't know, I think they probably won't. They'll probably do some kind of write their way out of it to where it doesn't have long lasting canon. It'd be cool if they do incorporate it, but yeah, that was a nice touch in some ways, but yeah, it's hard when the relationships you have with them is dictated by how often you play with them, and it's not clear how it's gonna affect the game, I guess, is my feeling.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't clear how to actually take advantage of that. It just seemed like there's certain things, like if you did everybody's basically side quests, you did all the side quests, and said the things that you thought Cloud would say. It's just gonna fill up everyone's meter, and eventually you're gonna just get I feel like me and you probably did the same thing there, Brandon. Like, went through doing most things. Everybody's high level relationship, so it just defaults to Tifa because that's really the relationship that's being pushed for the most part here. Like, I guess canonically, but yeah, I don't know. Definitely, hopefully I'm sure there's going to be relationship building still in the next game for other stuff, but hopefully they do it right. They do it a little bit better, just a little bit more like, I don't know. I guess I would have liked a choice, like, before you go on that date. It's like, you have maxed out relationship with all these characters. Who would you like to take out for the date? Like, cool, I have the option to do any of them. And then if I want to come back and choose again, I can choose again. Because I've done everything I need to up to this point to be able to do that.
Yeah.
I think also like just labeling it as a date was also a little misleading because after you watched all of them, like they all aren't actually dates. It could just be, hey, these two characters are hanging out at this moment, but I wouldn't necessarily consider it a date because it was kind of off-putting when it first like revealed the potential for a date because in my head, like you said, like canonically, it's Cloud and Tifa. So like, it almost like if you still want to follow that path, it's like it almost kind of scares you away from going to any of the other ones because they put that label of it being a date on it, and it's like I don't know how this is gonna like affect everything.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, which ultimately, I just like that it's more of an intimate moment.
Yeah.
Between each of those characters in Cloud, whether it's a date or not. Because I still think, like, Cloud and Tifa's relationship can progress as normal without going on that ride. But because theirs definitely was the most dull to me, honestly. Other, they get their kiss and the happy and the. I didn't know there was different versions of them. I got the one where they kissed, but like, definitely upon like watching the other dates, there were other ones that I would have preferred to get, but I don't think I would have gotten if playing the game normally. I don't think it'd be possible for me to have hit them on a first playthrough because I don't know.
Yeah, I think I would have like actively pursued some of the other options if it wasn't labeled a date. Like if it was just because when you label it like that, there's like a connotation that like something's gonna change something canonically going forward.
Yeah, and like taking Yuffie out on a date seems weird. Like we're riding a line here. This is awkward.
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't know if this is okay. A date with Red 13 is like, haha,
Yeah.
like just in theory, thinking about leading up to that point in theory, and then it's obviously like in the original game, it's like, is it going to be Aerith or is it going to be Tifa? I think it still could be Barrett, but like, yeah. It's really that like, which girl am I going to choose kind of thing, and this having the option to also take a kid or a dog, someone that's obviously younger than Cloud. Maybe they're not. I think we said last time she's 17 or 16, but like it just, some of them just seem awkward, and then the natural progression, like you would think it's either going to end up being Aerith or Tifa, and those are the ones that feel more like dates where, the whole thing should, if it wasn't labeled as like a date scene, it's like a, you get an intimate moment with each character. That doesn't mean necessarily anything like raunchy. It's just, a good moment for each of those characters to be vulnerable with each other more so than anywhere else in the game.
I think it might be a little bit of a cultural gap too. Like what constitutes a date here in the States might not be. We associate something romantic, right? And maybe, and we won't call it a date if it's not that, right? But maybe date is a little less, insinuates a little less. But yeah, I was right there with you. I was like, wait, what's happening? I'm going on a date with this dog, or with this buddy. It's like, or some other character and stuff.
Also for you, putting Barrett and getting your main one as Barrett and Cloud is like, I feel like the most awkward setting one, where it's like you got these two gruff dudes on this fantastical ride.
It's like that meme, the two dudes chilling in a hot tub, 5 feet apart.
Like arms crossed.
Not
looking at each other.
This isn't going to be fun, but we should go do it together because reasons, and I'm just like, neither one of us want to do this. Neither one of us want to be here. It's almost like there's a player controlling us who maxed out the wrong relationship. And now we have to go on this ride together and do this moment for reasons that we don't understand. But, my motivation for having Barrett in my party might be different than somebody else's. But, either way, it throws you for a loop a little bit that there are so many options. And you're like, wait, what? Like, what does this have to do with the canon and stuff? But yeah, I'm pretty sure none of it will be consequential for the third game. If it is, that would be pretty impressive. I would love for Barrett to come up to me and be like, remember that moment we shared? Like reads your save. Remember that?
I'm going to challenge that. I need something to be consequential. I need something to come all the way around in a full circle and just happen.
We'll see. I'll laugh and I'll love it.
Because the date, I don't know if y'all want to go into depth on dates, because that's not until like chapter 11 or 12.
Yeah,
right?
We're getting
we can talk about that whenever, but
so.
We're getting a little, just with the whole date mechanic. But I do want to come back to talking about the actual dates, because I definitely want shit to come around. I want to be like, remember that one time when you told me to do this? Well, I did it. I want it to happen.
Interesting. Well, hey guys, on that note, I'm sorry to have an abrupt ending, but I gotta run. Um, is it okay if we wrap up for
Yeah,
tonight?
yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. Well, thank you. I apologize again for being short notice. But yeah, chat, thank you so much for stopping by. Enjoyed you being here. Hope you enjoyed the conversation, and we'll be back with part 3 soon. All right.
Yeah, for sure.
Sounds
All
good.
right, y'all. Have a
See
great
ya.
night. Thank you.
See you guys.